I haven't given up NEMT. I can do that in my sleep.
You can still do NEMT in your sleep.
I can do that in
Welcome back to NEMT Expert Talks. I've got with me a special guest today, Sharnese Johnson, the secret sauce NEMT coach. Sharnese, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Never been better. Sharnese, you are all over social media. You coach NEMT businesses, you host events, you instruct them on how to get started. Can you give us a bit of a background on yourself? You started your NEMT business about 7 years ago, and 2 years ago, you shifted the focus from NEMT to student transport. Can you tell us about, 7 years ago, how you got into NEMT and what your journey's been like?
Sure, definitely. So about 7 years ago, I would say maybe 2016, I left corporate America, decided I did not want to be behind the desk anymore. I left, started doing Uber and Lyft, just to find out what it was that I actually wanted to do. In that time frame, my daughter had a friend at school whose mom was actually, she owned an NEMT business. She needed some drivers. So she asked would I mind coming on? And I decided, yeah, let me see what this is about. I'm already driving. So it piqued my interest because I was meeting different types of people. So, I got my way in and started to doing my research to find out what was NEMT. What is this NEMT? I looked online. I actually did not register a business, but I started my business with my own private pay clients during the time that I was working with her. She did tell me a little bit about how to obtain my own clients. So I started out with clients from Craigslist. Believe it or not, I put an ad on Craigslist. I obtained my private pay clients. One of them was with me for almost 5 years until he passed in 2021. But during that time, I saw the need because my mom had been sick as well and trying to get to doctor's appointments. And I'm like, you know what? This is something that's valuable. This is what I want to do. Coming forward to 2019, I decided, well, let's make this a permanent thing, legal thing. So I registered my business and took off from there. Went into NEMT, did it with brokers for maybe 6 months, and then branched out completely on my own with contracts with different vendors and facilities. And it wasn't until 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago, I started transporting students. Started out with maybe 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden it blew up from there. And I did not understand the importance of it until I actually became my provider, now a student transportation broker, that it's not just about the yellow school bus transportation. There's a great need for student transportation in many aspects of the school system. And that's what brings me here to now my focus is on student transportation. I haven't given up NEMT. I can do that in my sleep. But I shifted, pivoted to student transportation because there is a great need there as well. And here I am.
And here you are. And you can still do NEMT in your sleep. But you're focusing on the students now.
Exactly. Right. I can go to sleep and say, oh, okay, let's call this facility. Let's get this contract. Getting contracts is not a problem with NEMT. This is why I teach and do coaching and mentoring, because for the first 5 or so years of my entrepreneurship as an NEMT provider or passenger transportation, now that it's called, I know the ins and outs. I've gone through some of the things that some of the providers now are going through. So when I coach and I instruct and mentor, I don't do anything or teach on anything that I have not done, which is very few and far between. But if I've done it and I've experienced it, now I want to show others, this is what can happen, will happen. This is how to get through it.
So on that note, 2 years ago, 2 things happened. Number one, you shifted from focusing on NEMT to focusing on student transport. And number 2, you began this consulting, coaching, and putting a lot of content out there for new startup NEMT businesses to basically get mentoring from you.
Right.
Can you tell us about the second one first? So about the coaching and mentoring. You know, how did you decide to get into it, and how's that journey been for you?
So interesting. Someone just came to me and said, you know what, Sharnese, I hear, you know, sometimes you talking about it on your page about NEMT, the business that you're doing, and I've always wanted to get into it. You know, can you give me a little information and kind of help me on this journey? Great. You know, had no problems with it. And then this person was excited. And they were like, you know, you have so much information to give. And from there, she went on to not only starting an NEMT business, but then she started getting contracts, and you know, things started growing for her. And she would come back and she would tell me, if it had not been for you helping me, I wouldn't have gotten through this. And I remembered I had no one to show me when I came into the business. And what better way to give back than to help those who are wanting to come into the industry, come in doing it the right way, understanding the business, understanding your role as, you know, this NEMT company or business, and what, you know, who you're benefiting. And that's when I decided, you know what, I can do a little mentoring and coaching, and this is what I like to do. But my mentoring and coaching is not just for NEMT providers, it's for anyone who wants to start a business. But my focus in my consulting are the passenger transportation, NEMT, student transportation companies.
Can you give us any stories or examples of your clients who you've coached and who have, you know, been able to leverage your experience to thrive?
I can give you several. I have one client, he's in Massachusetts. He actually took my program. I have a program where I help you start your business from the beginning. We go all the way through understanding how to set up and get registered with your state, city, government to possibly bid on government contracts. So that's a whole process of about 4 months. He started that program, started his business. We walked through it. He's now he's asked to, I guess, procure some contracts with the Centers for Aging in Massachusetts. They actually approached him, said, hey, you know, we see you out there. We understand what you're doing. We would like you to, you know, transport our clients for us. We have a very large base of clients. We would like for you to do that. He contacted me about 2 weeks ago. He was so excited. He was like, hey, listen, what do I do? You know, this is kind of big. And we walked through that process. He also has now providers up under him that he helps to transport. He'll get contracts through the Motive Care and some of the other brokers in his area. And then he gives, you know, trips to them to help them in the business. So his idea was, you helped me, so now I'm going to give back and help others. I have one young lady, she has gone through many of my boot camps, my online trainings, and she decided, well, I think I want to do student transportation. She's in South Carolina. Okay. And I let her know, we go through this process. I'm going, you know, full speed ahead with you because school is getting ready to start in August, and you want to be prepared. She has been approached by not only 2 charter schools, but one of the school districts in South Carolina who says, hey, you know what? We need you. Send me your information now, and let's figure out how we can get you started. So I have them who come through, who, you know, obtain my services, and they are successful. They continue going on. I have one in Florida. She's doing well in Jacksonville, Florida. She came through the program as well. So
for everyone watching, if you want to get in on Sharnese's secret sauce, I'm putting her contact info in the description of this video. Reach out to her.
Reach out.
And now I want to get to the student transportation part.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, you started doing student transport.
Mm-hmm.
And you started with one contract, you started transporting some students, and then you began realizing, hey, I should actually lean more into this and shift my focus from NEMT to student transport. And then now that's the majority of what you're doing and the big part of your focus. talk to us about why you made that shift in focus.
So I have many different students. When I say different students, I have my autistic students. I have those who have some special needs. I have students from public schools, from private to charter schools. So I have an array of students that I transport. What really made me want to move further into student transportation is the family need. Okay, these are students and families who they either don't have the school busing in their area, no school buses, no routes in their area. The parents have to transport them to and from school. Imagine being a parent or a single parent, you're having to get a child to school, you're having to go to work, you're having to either leave work early or make adjustments in your schedule to now have to go back and pick that child up. But you also have a household to run. You need that help. You need someone to say, I will help you. I can transport your child for you. Being a single mom myself and having to transport my daughter back and forth to school, I understand what they are dealing with. So that was my one thing. You know what? If I can help a parent who has a need, who wants their child to go to a particular school because of the education that that child will receive, that is what I'm here for. Let's make sure that child gets to that school. Secondly, with my autistic students and the special needs, they like being in that environment with other kids. Okay, they like getting on the van, getting it with all the other kids and interacting with the other kids. It brings them together to let them know, you know what? I like this. I am just like you. I just may have a different type of disability, but they get on the van. They're playing video. You'd be surprised that they know the same video games. They're playing the same, on the phones. And I like that, because these kids are learning each other. And the third reason why I decided is because of the foster care, the homelessness that we are experiencing that involves many, many children. They are entitled to go to school. They're entitled to an education, regardless of their housing situation or their familiar, situation. The McKinney-Vento Act is a very important, it's a very big act, and it's in every state. Every state has a McKinney-Vento division of public school systems, etc., but they have a need. So I want to make sure that every student is going to school, is being transported to school, has that opportunity to attend school. And if I'm able to do it, whether it is subcontracting to another provider, if it is going to the school districts to set up a contract to partner with the school districts, whatever it takes for me to do that, that's what I want to do because it's dear to me. I want to see these children obtain their education.
The way that another NEMT business owner put it, who also shifted focus to student transport, is that in NEMT, you're focusing on the end of people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're going to be doing their last trip for them.
Mm-hmm.
Student transport, you're transporting people who are at the beginning of their lives.
Correct.
And you're going to be transporting them, that's a lifelong journey for them.
Mm-hmm.
How different is it from NEMT? Like, can you give us a comparison of you doing NEMT transports versus you doing student transportation?
The difference to me is with NEMT, you're transporting to a doctor's appointment. You're transporting someone you may never see again. You're transporting someone, and as they said, that may be their last transport. Okay, but with the students, when they see me, there's Miss Sharnese. When they are comfortable, okay, when they have a smile on their face, when they feel like I'm protected, that's what makes me want to continue to do it. I'm protecting someone when I'm driving them or transporting them for NEMT, but that's not a personal relationship that I have built that is going to continue on. With my student transportation, I built a relationship not only with the students, but I built a relationship with the schools and with the parents, that if something goes on, that you have that person to contact. So on this hand, the student transportation, I'm building relationships to carry on. For the NEMT, I'm there to provide a service that you may only have that is for that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Can you tell us about, like, for other NEMT providers out there who are hearing what you're saying and saying, hey, I like this. I think student transportation is an area that I want to explore diversifying into. One thing that's going to be on, transportation owners' minds is, what's the difference in the money I make from doing NEMT versus student transport? Like, what's the difference in the revenue and the business model?
So in NEMT, there's different models and ways to earn money in NEMT. You have your brokers and you have your private pay, which means you can work with a facility or with just individuals, right? So with a broker, you're limited to how much you're able to make, because in essence, that's that broker's business. You're just the person that's providing the service to help them along within their business. So you're limited in how much you're actually able to make. On the private pay side, when you're doing NEMT, you're looking at, are they able to pay a certain amount? Is it insurance? What type of facility? What is their budget in doing so? How long will I be transporting them to the point where I will be seeing that revenue coming from private pay and NEMT? On the school side, you have your school districts and those programs such as McKinney-Vento, et cetera, who have funding that if you're able to contract with them, you have at least 9 months that guaranteed that you're making this revenue. Okay, you also have families that you add to that who they're willing to pay for their services because their child is getting to school. And if you're providing the service of them getting to school on time, that you have that flexibility for the parents, they're going to pay. So you get contracts in NEMT. That's not one of those things where you'll never get a contract in NEMT. But on this side of student transportation, in fact, that for 9 months, you're guaranteed they're going to pay. You have a school district that says, we're going to pay you, this is the amount that we're going to pay. You're picking up 20, 30, 40 kids for us. Imagine picking up 20, 30, 40 children at one time versus you may have a contract where you may only have 5 or 6, 8 or 10 at one time in NEMT. It's the volume in student transportation versus your volume in NEMT that then brings on that revenue.
So in order to actually transport that volume, what are the different kinds of vehicles and drivers? You have to have a different kind of capacity to be able to do student transport, right? So if I'm an NEMT company, I do wheelchair transport, ambulatory, let's say, I want to move into student transport. What assets do I need to acquire in order to actually be able to do it?
So for me, having several 15-passenger vans and an 8-passenger van and an SUV. Okay. Now, with those passenger vans, I can take on several routes. That means I have routes going at many different times, but I have on each van 60 children total. They could be going to different schools, but those vans are in motion at the same time. You can do it in a sedan, you can do it in an SUV, because you're still able to get multiple children in those vehicles to transport them. So it is the same type of vans and vehicles that you can use in NEMT, but again, it's the volume. How many NEMT providers, would have a 15-passenger van that they're going to fill up at one time to transport somewhere? Unless it's a dialysis center, and 15 people that you're picking up at one time for dialysis versus 15 children you have on this 15-passenger van that you're transporting. Again, it's the volume. It's not so much the vehicle, because as a broker, I can have several providers or several companies that are transporting up under me that are able to pick up multiple children. So therefore, I'm still reaching that volume. of children, even with if it's one vehicle here, one vehicle there, or SUV there. So it just depends on what your volume is and what you're looking to do, how many children you want to transport at one time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I was going to ask you, like, does it make sense for a transportation business to start out doing NEMT and then move into student transport versus just starting out and doing student transport from the start?
Many people, transporters, providers, don't want to deal with children. Okay, so it's not one of those where you start out in NEMT and you transition. No, if you feel that I like working with children, I understand the business, the industry, and I know that, okay, this is going to benefit me in many ways. You don't have to start out in NEMT. This is not a, NEMT is not one of those prerequisites where in order to do student transportation, you have to have this NEMT experience. The experience comes with, one, if you start out with 1 or 2 children and you get an understanding of your routes, knowing how to do your routes. It is the same type of transportation because you're transporting people, they may be children, and it's you having to develop a route. However, you're looking at it's student transportation versus NEMT, but it's still passenger transportation. And that's what a lot of people in the industry don't understand. NEMT is just the non-emergency medical side of it. But when you're getting into adding other types of transportation, airport transportation, passenger transportation, all of that can be done together. You're no longer an NEMT provider at that point. You are a passenger transportation company at that point because you do all things transportation. And that's what I am.
Right. So let's talk about actually winning contracts to do the student transportation. I say, okay, I want to do this. I think it makes sense. I like, the children, the use case of transporting children. I have the vehicles. I have the capacity to do it. How do I actually approach schools and win contracts to do the transport?
There are different ways. Some districts, some states, you have to do a bidding process in order to obtain student transportation contracts within those states. And there further north, you have Massachusetts, I believe is one, New York, some of their school districts, that you have to actually bid on the contract, right? Then you have further south, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida. It's not a bidding on a contract, but there's either an open enrollment period that they will accept applications from providers who want to do student transportation, or you have what they call the alternative transportation companies or the brokers who they have a contract that they have gotten a partnership with a school district that you can then go up under that provider and provide student transportation services up under that company. So it just depends on where you are and what the requirements are for that state. Some school districts would tell you that, we simply need the help. Send over the information that what the type of work that you perform, your availability, how many students you're able to transport. And at the same time, there are school districts who say, we don't offer student transportation, but we would allow the parents to reach out to you to, utilize your services, which means that, and it's basically charter schools, private schools, micro schools that don't have transportation, but they are not funded enough to be able to afford to pay a provider. So then they shift that responsibility to the parent, and then the parent and the provider has that relationship.
And the way this industry is shaping out, it seems to me like there's growing opportunity to do more student transport. Like the demand is it's up and to the right. Is that right?
That is correct. And the reason being, if you look at now, there has been a lot of issues with school busing in a lot of districts, a lot of states where it has become minimal school buses now that you see. That may be to do a lack of people retiring who have done it for so long they retired. Not many people want to drive school buses. But the thing is, the more that the lack of school buses that you see, you have many other communities that are now going up, which there are a lot of children in those communities. So that is the need. There is a great need for it because, again, those students have to get to school. Being a student transportation provider also gives the flexibility to the parents. We have what we call satellite drop-off locations that the parents will bring the kids there. We pick them up all at one time and we drop them back off at that same location. That could be near a parent's work location that they just have to run quickly, pick up their child and maybe go back to work or run them home. Versus a school bus, you may not have that flexibility to have a school bus to drop your child off at your place of employment. So that's that flexibility there for the parents when it comes to private or alternative transportation companies.
Yeah. Any fun or favorite story you want to leave our viewers with about doing student transport?
I have so many stories. The children, they like at the end of the winter break, I normally give them gifts. Okay. We used to do snacks, but the children, I find a lot of crumbs and paper. And so I kind of had to cut the snacks out. But I had one student to get on the van just before I stopped doing the snacks. And he got on the van and he sat there and he knew, let's put our seatbelts on, let's get ready. And he sat there and he said, okay, Miss Sharnese, I'm ready. And I said, what are you ready for? It's snack time. And I said, oh, I didn't bring the snacks. Oh, man, are you kidding me? And I said, you all don't like to pick up the paper and the trash off the van. And all of a sudden he turned around. He said, hey, pick up your paper and your trash because I want my snacks. And he turned around. He said, how about that? I'm like, no, that's not going to work. But hey, he was ready. He was determined. Listen, I want my snacks. So, but I have so much fun with them, listening to them. I usually put my little earbuds on to make them think that I'm not listening, but I am. And it's some of the things that they talk about, and they even talk about school stuff. And I just love it. It's a fun thing for me because I like working with children. And I like the fact that they are safe with me. They feel safe with me. So that's I wouldn't change it for the world.
I love it. I love it. Everyone, Sharnese Johnson, the CEO of Optimal Reliability, the secret sauce NEMT coach. Again, her contact info is in the description. Reach out to her, get in on that secret sauce. Sharnese, thanks so much.
Run, Bambi, run.
Awesome. Thanks, Sharnese.